right, guys. So I just drove home from upstate like 7 hours, and you'd think I'd be exhausted, but I just had this like desire because I've been wanting to do and talk about Casino for a while now. And I ended up picking Goodfellas a month or so back and did a video on that. I just got home, unpacked, threw the TV on, saw Casino. I said, all right, that's what we're doing here. So it goes without saying, this is directed by Martin Scorsese, who is just a phenomenal director. I think this is the third movie of his, right? After Hours, which if you haven't seen that movie, it's my favorite comedy ever. So watch After Hours by Scorsese. Goodfellas, and yeah, and now this one. So with Casino from 95, we have De Niro playing Sam Ace Rothstein, a Jew who's an expert gambler who gets sent by the mob to run the Tangiers Casino and motel, whatever it is, in Vegas. And at the same time, we have his best friend who's a mob-made man, Nicky Santoro, played by the great Joe Pesci, ends up going to Vegas also and starts causing a bunch of problems for Ace. Then we have the great Sharon Stone. Her performance is excellent in this movie, and she won a Golden Globe for this performance. The cast just goes on. I mean, we have Frank Vincent, we have James Woods as the pimp, the douchebag in this movie. Don Rickles, who plays like Ace's, he's like his right-hand man at the casino. There's a lot of people in this. I mean, and a lot of Scorsese regulars also. I think this is like the 7th movie or something like that he did with De Niro. And if you remember from my Goodfellas video, when I was saying that the narration, which Scorsese uses in so many of his movies, I was debating what I like better, whether I like the narration better in Goodfellas or in Casino here. And I think it has to be Casino. It's this movie. And I'll tell you why. As much as I love Ray Liotta, he's the focus of Goodfellas. So you get a lot more narration from Henry Hill and from Karen. This movie, you get just narration from De Niro and Pesci. Those are your two main narrators, just the mix of the two of them. And their voices and the way they talk and their personalities, they contrast each other and complement each other at the same time so well. I can listen to De Niro and Pesci go back and forth talking about mob shit and killing people and laughing stuff off all night long. And speaking of long, this is a long movie. This is about 3 hours. So let's get this shit underway and talk Casino from 1995. Oh, let me say this too. The opening shot of this movie, when Ace gets into his car, which we see again near the end of the movie, this takes place, in the future, and the bomb goes off, and the flames come up in slow motion, and the body is floating, and then the credits start right when, I know it's a Bach piece, played by an orchestra. It's one of the greatest openings to a movie. It's so good. Kevin Pollak, that's right, we got Kevin Pollak in this movie. John Bloom. There's so many. Like I said, the cast is excellent in this film. All the opening credits, though, with the lights of the hotels in Vegas. What a great sequence. Oh, also, this is 100% my favorite performance by Joe Pesci. Absolutely. I think he does much better in this movie than in Goodfellas. And I know people might not agree with that or see him on the same level. I think he outshines himself in Goodfellas in this film. His performance, he is so insane in this movie. I mean, I know he's insane in Goodfellas too. The scene alone when he's torturing the guy for 2 days and puts his head in the vice, all of that is just insanity to the extreme. And he pulls it off just like usual, brilliantly. I also think it stands out more how much of a maniac that Nicky is in this film than his character of Tommy in Goodfellas, because they're all criminals in that movie. They're all wise guys. They're all murderers. They're all in that same world. He is the craziest one, yes. But when you compare him to Ace in this film, Ace wants to be as squeaky clean as possible. He wants to do this, the legitimate way. And Nicky keeps interfering with that and fucking it up like royally. So I think you see more of the contrast of the more level-headed Ace and how crazy Nicky Santoro is. Also, even though this movie, and I say this all the time, is 3 hours, it's very long, this probably won't be too long of a video because a lot of it is the narration from De Niro and Pesci. And just the things they say and the way they say it, and they describe these scenes, which I guess this is a nice little moment to put this in here. So I started a TikTok like a little over a month ago. My sister was bugging me for years saying you should start one. I never had any interest, and then I had some friends that are on there too. To be honest, I fucking love it. Now, this doesn't mean there's any change to where content's going or anything like that. The channel here is always going to be the main thing. But if you are on there and you like getting little tiny bits of content here and there that I can't put on this platform because of copyright reasons, then head over and follow on the TikTok. It's the same name as the channel. You can't miss it. But I can take videos from like 2 years ago and edit them down to like 2-minute shorts and like little short reviews or comments on movies, or just put clips of a movie and put a little commentary on it. Stuff that most of the time I would get nailed for copyright on here. So it is a nice little way to put like little morsels of small bits of content, sprinkled out when I can't record a full-on video like this. So head over there if you're not following. And there's some really cool people that I've already met over there in the horror TikTok world. So we got to merge the families. Back to the movie. And the reason I even brought all that up is because I was saying this may be shorter than you'd think for a 3-hour movie because a lot of the narration stuff. And then it made me think, yeah, I'll put some clips in, but then who knows how it's going to be with this film. I mean, GoodFellas I didn't have any issues with, but that's the thing I got to worry about. But for brevity's sake, the whole intro, when Ace is doing his voiceover and Pesci's coming in and out and they're talking about the desert and they're talking about the casinos and how it's all rigged to take all your money away from you and destroy your life and dreams. And they show them counting the money. And I'm pretty sure that, like, out of the corner of my eye, that's Scorsese in a cameo, right? In the counting room. I could be wrong, but it looked like him. And then they show the person coming in and taking the money and sending it back home. All of that's great. That's what I mean, man, with Pesci's delivery of his lines when he's talking about Kansas City. That's where the Remo and the old bosses are at. He's talking about how they have the fat fuck come into the casino and it's just another fat fuck walking out with a suitcase. And then he says, you see this old Mormon fuck here, he's got to go. Just the way he delivers that line. He's so funny in this movie. And I don't think he's trying to be. Now, this is all based off of true events for the most part. They changed some things, which I've noticed. I forget the city the mob was actually from, but they say Kansas City here. I know they had to change it. That Scorsese couldn't use it. And there's a scene where they just show like a meeting between them, but it doesn't say where it is or something like that. And Nicky mentions in the voiceover here a few other cities, but they don't mention Chicago. So I'm pretty sure Chicago was the actual location, because they're going way out of their way to not mention Chicago. And he goes on to say how they own the Teamsters Union. And if you wanted to open a casino, they got to approve it, which means they get all their suitcases of money every single month. And they're the guys who secretly controlled Las Vegas. Nicky's voiceover really does an excellent job at portraying just how brilliant Ace is when it comes to gambling. When he starts saying, back years ago when they first started hanging out, and cute how it pops up on the screen, back years ago. That's funny. But he says that Ace used to figure out whether, like a basketball player was a coke fiend or if his girlfriend was knocked up, and he would figure out the different types of wood, how it affected the bounce of the basketball, like stuff that nobody else was looking into. And that's how brilliant this guy is at gambling. You believe it right out the gate. So that way, anything from this point forward, you look at Ace, he's the expert. This guy knows everything there is to know about gambling, and he is perfectly fit to run this casino. Then we have Kevin Pollak as Philip Green, the he owns the casino, right? Isn't that what his role is? He's the owner of the Tangiers. I love when they go to see Remo, and this is like before he starts working at the Tangiers. And Nicky says how Remo is a degenerate gambler who always loses, and they show you him getting pissed off at the card game. That's hilarious. Then he comes in and he starts saying how Ace tells Remo everything, every deal or bet that he's got going, and that it's the best insurance policy. And he's damn right. You keep making this guy money all the time, he'll do anything for you. He'll protect your ass no matter what. He'll put you in charge of the Tangiers Casino in Vegas. Remember how earlier I was saying how well they establish Ace's character? Same with Nicky. The scene when they're just hanging out in some bar, Ace picks the pen up, and the guy next to him says, just take that pen and stick it up your ass. And without hesitation, while Ace is still talking with the guy, Nicky's already coming around, grabs the pen and starts stabbing this guy in the neck repeatedly, kicking his ass on the ground. And his line of just, you hear a tough guy? Where's the tough guy who just told my friend to stick it up his ass? All of that is fantastic. And immediately, you know this guy's insane. He's willing to do anything for almost no reason. You beat Nicky with a knife, he comes back with a gun. You beat Nicky with a gun, you better kill him. If not, he's going to come back and back and back to one of you's dead. All of that, like, it's so classic. This is such a classic movie. And it does a great job at showing just how corrupt Vegas was back then. Everybody's getting payoffs. Everybody's getting bribes. Politicians, the police, anyone you can think of is getting paid, or they're paid and bought off. All I can say about what they do to this Japanese billionaire, criminal masterminds at work here. The Japanese guy, he places like $30,000 bets at a time, but he took the casino for $2 million. So he ends up leaving, and they get him back by bribing the pilot to say that the plane isn't working, his private jet. And then they go and they fuck with something else at the airport, and that connecting flight isn't available. And they get him back to the casino, and they give him a whole floor to himself, knowing this whole time that he's going to end up losing his shirt and betting all those winnings back. And that's exactly what happens. He starts betting small, then I love how Ace says he thinks of it like he's losing $90,000, not gaining $10,000 or something like that. And he starts betting bigger. And he ends up giving what he won, the $2 million, plus another $1 million on top of that of his own money. Fucking brilliant plan. And then we meet Ginger, played by Sharon Stone. And again, she is just splendid in this movie. And she's one hell of a hustler. That's all she does. The first time Ace sees her is when she's taking the tokens, pocketing them in her purse. Let me say this about James Woods in this movie. I've never been a big fan of James Woods, and I know there's people who love him, and I know there's people who can't stand him as an actor. But his role in this movie as whatever the fuck his name is, the degenerate pimp, Lester Diamond, right? That sounds right. We're going with that. I forget every time I see this movie, and I've seen this movie so many times, that James Woods is even in this movie until his character shows up. That's how well he does in this. I think he does a very good job playing this greaseball douchebag that's always trying to use Ginger to hustle for him. He does so good that I always forget it's James Woods. So just had to throw him some praise. Lester Diamond for the win. They just introduced his character. And I love the whole valet parking scam that Ginger runs, and how Ace breaks all of it down. She pays off the valet guys because they handle all the cars, and they could steal a plan to get anything for you. All of that's great. Then they introduce Lester. And we're just about a half hour into this 3-hour movie, guys. One thing I do like about Nicky's character, despite how deranged he is, and they show this a few times in the movie, here with how Ace got his kid, little Nicky, into Little League. Then later on, Ace mentions that no matter, what his night was, whatever he's doing, he made sure that he's home to make breakfast for his son, little Nicky. So at least he's a loving father, even though he's a fucking maniac otherwise. But the mob sends him out basically to make sure that nobody fucks with Ace and nobody robs the casino that they're skimming money from. That's the sole reason that he comes out to Vegas. They send him there. And Ace is very hesitant because he knows how Nicky is, and he's trying to run this legit casino. And everything's going great for Ace at this moment. But then how Nicky looks at it with his voiceover, that the place is untouched and there's so many drug dealers and pimps and hustlers that he can just shake down, and his unscientific approach that does work of if he wins, collects the money, if he loses, tell the bookie go fuck themselves, because what are they going to do? It's Nicky. All of that's funny as hell. And then we see the two guys from another family that try robbing the place for $200,000, and Nicky stops them, and he lets them off with a warning. And he says, anybody who knows, Nicky and the mob and the families and stuff, they get off with a warning out of respect. And then they show the two guys that are robbing the place and coordinating with each other, and they think that they're smart. And then the one guy gets his hand fucking demolished. So many great scenes in this. So then Ace proposes to Ginger, and she's not into it, so he has to really sell the shit out of this idea that we'll be happy and we'll have a mutual respect. It could build over time. And then he puts $2 million in a lockbox with a key that only she has access to, and $1 million of jewelry, knowing her background. I mean, I know love makes you do crazy shit, but that's some crazy shit. And I would never do that. But that's me. I think it's really poetic too. And he straight up says it. That for somebody who's all for sure things, I was about to, take the biggest long shot of my life. Asking, Ginger to marry him. I think it's very poetic though, that he's right and wins all the time. And is this expert gambler that doesn't know how to lose. And the one, big bet that and chance that he takes is asking this hustling woman with this whole backstory with Lester Diamond, and that's like the guy that she can't break away from. He loses on this bet. This is the bet that he does not get right. I mean, to be fair, like a scene later, Nicky in a voiceover says that even with his history of betting, he had to make some type of insurance policy, and she had to get pregnant and they had to have a kid before they got married. So he did have some type of foresight and insurance policy, if you want to look at it that way, from the way that he's thinking. Not enough, in my opinion, though. Oh, side note, I watched this recently, maybe 2-3 months back. I forget where I was watching it. But it was a very weird edit. They were still cursing and saying fucker, motherfucker, and stuff like that. But then it also was cut with other stupid, censorship edits, like alligator flubber, not that or anything close. But you know what I'm talking about. It was a weird mixture of having the language, but then also having censored words and stuff. It was really, really weird, and it was starting to freak me out. I was saying to myself, there's no way this is how the movie is. But this one's fine on Amazon for some reason. So I forget where that was, and this has nothing to do with anything, and this is already a long movie, but felt I had to share that. I watched forward a bit, so we flash forward a while here. Nicky starts causing problems. The guy's putting his feet on the table, and then he calls Ace a faggot, and then he doesn't know who Ace is, and he's working for Nicky. And then Nicky's talking to this guy, and he's on the phone with Ace, and he says to the guy, he says, come here, you called my friend a faggot? You told him to go fuck himself? He starts beating him with the phone. That's hilarious too. And then Ace straight up warns him. Says, listen, you're going to get put in the black book, which was a real thing. And Al Capone was in the black book. What does Nicky do? He don't listen at all, true to his character, and he gets put in the black book. So he can't walk into a casino or anything. You can't come close to a casino. So basically, out of the predicament of being fucked in every way possible, Nicky, as stubborn as he is, he ain't going nowhere. So he starts knocking off places all over Vegas. He buys his own place, the Gold Rush, the jewelry store. That's a nice touch. He has people all over Vegas giving him tips, letting him know when people checked into casinos and hotels so he can go knock off their houses or their businesses. There's never been anybody like Nicky Santoro in Las Vegas, is what Ace says. Oh, okay, that's what it is. They say back home on the screen. I thought they just didn't say anything. It says back home. So again, they don't say Chicago. Yeah, this is one of the best scenes in the movie with Tony Dogs, where they show him and his crew shooting up a bar that killed two of Remo's guys and the waitress, a bartender, that it was her night off. They end up grilling this dude and torturing him for 2 days straight. They even put ice picks in his balls. And then Pesci has the balls to say to him when he puts his head in the vice, you know, Anthony, I got your head in a vice. I'm going to squish your head open like a grapefruit. Don't make me do that. Don't make me a bad guy. You already stuck ice picks in his balls. I think you're a pretty bad guy to this guy. And then he pops his eye out of his head in the vice. And he gives the name up as Charlie M. And Nicky knows this guy. He says, you made me pop your eye out your fucking head for Charlie M., that piece of His whole rant is excellent. And if you feel like seeing that scene over me describing it, head over to TikTok because that scene's up there. It's kind of what led to this video tonight. But Nicky is sending money back to Remo and the guys too, so they're all happy with him. And I have to agree with Sam here in his argument with Ginger when she comes up and just flat out asks him for $25K and doesn't give a reason. That shit's suspicious. I don't care what the reason is. And you know he knows, and that's why he shows up there. And he has the people beat the shit out of Lester Diamond. And that guy still doesn't get the message because he ends up helping her kidnap Sam's daughter later. And like with most Scorsese movies, the soundtrack's fantastic. Every song that's used, every song that he picks, the Moody Blues playing, Nights in White Satin, when Ginger goes to Nicky for comfort, and we know how that turns out later on. Every song that he picks for his movies is just perfectly picked. Then you have the guy who works at the casino, who he's a fucking moron, because I'm not a big gambler or anything like that, but even I would know. You have 3 machines go off and hit jackpots within minutes of each other. The odds are astronomical, so that would never happen. So he fires him, and he ends up being the brother-in-law, right, of, I forget who he is. He's like the gaming commissioner or something like that. The old dude, the cowboy who comes in, and he asks Ace, is there any other job that he can give to his brother-in-law? And he flat out says, no, sorry, like, I'd like to do favors, but I can't have the guy working here. And that's what ends up screwing him for getting his gaming license. That's a cool scene that for some reason I always forget when I think back on this movie. And I just saw it like a few months ago. When the silent partner of Philip Green, the old bitchy woman, shows up and she wants money from the whole operation and that she's supposed to be his partner and she ends up suing him. Remo and the family decide to settle things out of court and they send Nicky and he shoots her in the head multiple times and then lays her down. That's a very cool scene too. So this kind of has nothing to do with anything, but it does tie into the movie. When cowboy guy goes to whoever they are, I know that's very descriptive, and he starts saying, did this guy ever apply for his gaming license? One of the guys there is the high talker from Seinfeld, just for you guys who are itching to know. And of course, Sam is denied his gaming license, which sucks, man. Everybody else fucks up this whole operation for Sam in this movie. He's running things very well. He's having everything run like clockwork. He's got money galore running through this place. And Ginger starts fucking things up for him. And Nicky starts fucking things up for him. And the douchebag who worked there, the cowboy's brother-in-law, doesn't realize 3 jackpots ringing in 10 minutes is a scam. Everybody fucks with this guy's operation. Then Remo and the bosses notice that Nicky's getting sloppy and he's getting out of control. And I guess the cops or the feds or something found the head of a body, or they found some remains of something in the desert, and it's in the papers, so they're getting heat brought on them from Nicky being a fucking maniac. So you already see them, heading in the direction that it goes in at the end of this, where they have enough. And like always, everything starts to come crashing down. And that's Scorsese's mom, right? In the grocery store, whatever this is, that's being wiretapped, and the guy's complaining and stuff and mentioning all the names, and the FBI's writing the names down. That's Scorsese's mom, who was also in Goodfellas and pretty sure in a few other movies of his, right? Yeah, Piscano. That's the guy's name who gives all this information out. And what really sucks is they weren't even listening for any... They had no idea about Vegas. They were listening for some unsolved homicide, and they ended up picking up all this audio of him complaining about trips to Vegas and the Tangiers and the suitcases of money. He spills everything for the FBI. I think it's hilarious, the fact that Remo tells the guy to tell Ace he's got to be quiet. Now that his gaming license, was denied, he can't be the head of the Tangiers, so he goes with food and beverage director. But then he ends up making a TV show and going on TV on a show called Aces High. That's too funny. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking. He's just letting the fame and the power get to his head, because he knows Remo. He knows all the people back home. He should know that they're not going to stand for that. And this scene in the desert is gorgeous. The cinematography is beautiful in this whole sequence. They meet out in the desert. The guy just told Ace, everyone from back home is saying, you call it quits. Nicky ain't going nowhere. He says Nicky should go on a vacation. They said, no, he ain't going anywhere. You should just walk away. So they warn him. So he goes to meet Nicky in the desert. And this is the scene, when I last rewatched this, that made me start losing my mind and saying, why are they using such weird words? Because he'd be saying, listen, you Jew motherfucker, all right, you horse blubber, and then that would come out, and what the hell was that? So it's good to see it in its uncut, pure form here, but I think this is one of the best scenes in the movie with the two of them. Both of their performances are excellent. So Ginger and Lester Diamond end up meeting back up. She takes $25,000 and their daughter Amy, which... you just don't do that. And speaking of performances, this is the scene in the movie with the best performances, by far, from De Niro and from Sharon Stone. This is probably the scene that clinched her the Golden Globe. When they're arguing and yelling at each other with just such vitriol and hatred towards each other, and he's dragging her into the closet and she wants her money, and they're just... It's captured so well how poisoned this relationship has become. And yeah, the performances are just unreal in that scene. I mean, I know she's sniffing a lot of coke, she's drinking like crazy and stuff, so she's not thinking clearly, but her genius plan is to go to the homicidal maniac best friend of the husband you hate and suck his cock and try to bring him in on the plan to get the $2 million and the jewelry. Not the best idea. I love the way this is directed, and this is the best voiceover narration from someone other than Pesci and De Niro. When Frankie gets asked by Remo, there's so many fucking names, if he knows or heard anything about Nicky, the little guy, fucking the Jew's wife, then it just freeze frames on Frankie for like 2-3 seconds before he starts saying, what could I do? If I said yes, then everybody could have ended up getting killed. Ace and Ginger and Nicky, so I lied. Just knowing that I'm lying to Remo means that I could get killed too. That whole voiceover is great, and that whole freeze frame pause on him is such a nice detail and touch. So Vegas life starts getting to everybody, and Nicky's not the same Nicky. He's fucking coked out of his mind all the time. They're pulling off robberies and stuff with no care in the world, and they have to walk around covering their mouths when they talk, him and Frankie, because the feds are watching with lip readers, then he flat out says, like, to go dig a hole in the desert. Have a hole dug and wait for me to say, go see the Jew. So he plans on killing Sam. Man, I know Ginger's character and her background isn't the most savory. Like, she's done some shit, but man, she really gets treated like crap by everybody in this movie. When Nicky says to her, after the whole outburst that she had, and she ties up her daughter and ties her to the bed so she can go out to Nicky's. I mean, if that was me, man, it would be over. But then Nicky ends up saying, like, how am I going to get your money now? Look what you did to this poor guy. And she even floats the idea of, why don't you have him killed? And even though he already told Frankie to get the two guys to dig the hole, he's pretty sincere here, I think, where he snaps at her basically and says, what are you, crazy? I'm going to whack my friend I've known the guy 35 years because of you? So he says that very sincerely. So I think he really doesn't want to kill Ace. But then she gets thrown out of the club or wherever they're at, and he's being watched 24/7. And I think it's hilarious. She's screaming, I'm going to the FBI. And he's just like, oh, yeah, okay, be careful, be careful. He's so funny in this. So Ginger comes back to the house trashed, and she ends up having the cops escort her in, and she's able to get the key to the safety deposit box. And he realizes it, and Ace is fucking furious. Are you kidding me? This is why you don't do that. And she goes to the bank and takes all the money out. And then she just ends up getting pulled over by the feds for aiding and abetting. And after all the scenes that she's made, she doesn't say a word to them. She doesn't tell them anything. And then the whole ending to this movie is just great, with the montage to House of the Rising Sun and the feds between Ginger and Nicky and the wiretap Piscano spilling his guts about everything. And then they find his expense reports because he was bitching earlier that they're sending him to Vegas and he's paying out of pocket and I'm going to keep records. And then the guy says, you don't keep any fucking records. And what does he do? He keeps records. And he ends up having a heart attack right then and there, or drops dead in front of his wife. And then, so true, when they're showing Remo and the old timers in court, and they're sick, some of them, they got like the breathing, oxygen masks, they got oxygen with them, but when they're outside of court, the guy takes it off like he doesn't need it, and they're deciding on this non-Italian guy, Stoney, and they all say he's a stand-up guy, his father was great, he's good in my book. And then it just takes one person, and it's Remo, who says, why take any chances? That's how I feel about it. And he gets shot and killed, and shot a lot, mind you. They shoot this guy twice in the back of the head, and then the other guy lets off like 4 or 5 more rounds into this guy's body on the ground. They really want to make sure he's dead. And then they just start killing everybody and tying up any loose ends that there is. And Nicky heard about the feds coming, so he got out of Dodge. And they don't really have anything, I guess, on Sam. Like anything that they can arrest him with, because they come to the house and show him the pictures of Ginger with Nicky and say, why would you protect a friend who would do something like that? And he just shuts the door on them. So I guess the feds don't have anything on him really, because he's been pretty squeaky clean, except for his friendship with Nicky. Tragically, Ginger ends up dying from a hot dose of some drug, probably heroin or something. And all she had left was $3,600 in coins. I mean, that's sad. Then we have the whole great scene of Nicky and his brother getting the shit kicked out of them by Frankie and the 2 others in the cornfield. That looks really cool, the whole cornfield setting. And they bury them alive while they're still breathing. That's some dark shit. Then we see how Sam survived the car bombing. And nobody outside the factory who made that car knew that there was a metal plate under the driver's seat. And it's pretty heavily implied it was Nicky that made the call for the car bombing on Ace, right? I mean, that's pretty heavily implied. So all the loose ends are tied up. Vegas is destroyed like the old Vegas, and it's nothing like it used to be. And they show all the old casinos being torn down. And Sam just ends up right back where he started. And he could still make money. He could still make bets. And why mess up a sure thing? Not too bad for a 3-hour movie, but this is a classic. I think I enjoy this more than GoodFellas. I was saying that in the GoodFellas video. It's so hard. They're so close. But I really think that Casino is the better film. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys prefer Casino or GoodFellas, and why? Let me know. But alright guys, hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I'll talk to you soon. Take care guys, I'm going to bed.